they won't understand how hard it is for you to let go. Because from the outside, you look fine, maybe even cold, quiet, unbothered. But inside, your soul is screaming. It's not just about walking away from someone. It's about walking away from a version of you that once believed they were your everything. The pain isn't in the loss. It's in the meaning you gave to them. And when that meaning starts to collapse, it doesn't just hurt. It shakes the foundation of your identity. Because they weren't just a person. They were your mirror, the one you gave your wounds to, hoping they'd hold them gently. The one you let into the most sacred parts of your loneliness, praying they'd stay. The one who made you feel something, maybe anything, when the rest of the world felt numb. So how do you detach when the very idea of losing them feels like losing yourself? Start here. You're not losing them. You're meeting yourself again. Detachment is not about becoming colder. It's about becoming clearer. Most people think detachment means you no longer care. But the truth is, detachment begins when you care enough about your peace to stop sacrificing it for someone who keeps disturbing it. Because somewhere along the way, you confused attachment with love. You thought closeness meant connection. You believed persistence meant purpose. You stayed because you felt deeply, not because it was healthy. You mistook intensity for intimacy. And that's the trap. When you're hurt, and someone makes you feel seen, that moment carves deep. Even if it came with chaos. Even if it came with pain. You still remember the feeling of finally being noticed, finally being chosen. So you cling. Not to the person, but to the feeling they unlocked. But what if that feeling was always inside you? What if they were never the source, just the trigger? Detachment starts with this one shift. Write this down. I am not what they did to me. I am what I choose to do with what happened. The fastest way to detach is to realize that your story doesn't end where they left. It begins where you decide to return to yourself. That means stop replaying the conversations. Stop decoding the silence. Stop analyzing the mixed signals. Because every time you do, you re-anchor your worth to their absence. Detachment is born the moment you decide your healing doesn't require their permission. It means you can still feel the ache and not run back. You can still miss the way they laughed and not text them. You can still remember the good and still walk away. Because maturity is realizing that just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's meant for you. And when you're healing, familiarity is dangerous. It pulls you back into cycles that once broke you. It whispers lies like, maybe they've changed, or maybe it wasn't that bad. But detachment doesn't negotiate with maybe. Detachment says, even if it was real, it's no longer right. The emotional detox they never taught you. No one teaches you how to unhook from someone who felt like home, especially when you built your identity around them. But the truth is, they weren't your home. They were your habit. And habits don't break by force. They break by replacement. So what replaces them? Silence. Not for punishment, but for recalibration. Solitude. Not to hide, but to listen to what your soul needs. Rituals. Little daily promises to yourself that say, I'm choosing me now. And most of all, expression, not suppression. Write the letter you'll never send. Speak the words out loud to the wind. Let your body cry, scream, shake. Release, because the wound you don't express becomes the weight you carry. Detachment is not a decision you make once. It's a practice, a repetition, a ritual of returning. Every time your mind goes back to them, gently whisper, "This is a part of healing." And healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering with less pain. And that's the secret no one tells you. You don't need to hate them to move on. You don't need to erase them to grow. You just need to stop letting the memory of them be more alive than your present. Why most people never truly detach? Because deep down, they're waiting for closure, waiting for an apology, waiting for the universe to make it fair, waiting for the story to feel complete. But life rarely gives you the bow tie ending. Sometimes, closure is realizing they were not capable of giving you the ending you deserved. And that's not your fault. That's the turning point. When you no longer seek completion from them, you reclaim the power to complete yourself. That's when you stop hoping they'll come back better and start becoming better yourself. And that's when everything begins to shift. The silence no longer feels like punishment. It feels like space. The memories no longer feel like chains. They feel like lessons. And the love you once gave to them, it begins to return home to you. And here's the part no one talks about. The real moment of detachment isn't when you stop loving them. It's when you realize you've always been worthy of a love that doesn't hurt. And when that truth lands, everything changes. But before it does, your mind will try one more trick, one more pull, one more memory dressed as a reason to stay attached. And that's exactly where we go next, where your brain tricks you into thinking love is safety. But in truth, it's just fear in disguise. Let's unmask it. But even when you realize you're holding on to pain, there's something terrifying about letting go. Because pain, as awful as it sounds, is familiar. It's predictable. It gives you a false sense of control. You can anticipate the rejection. You can rehearse the disappointment. You can build walls before someone else has the chance to break you. And sometimes, without realizing it, we choose the wound just because it's ours. The illusion of control. You think staying connected to someone who hurts you gives you power. You think analyzing their every word will help you prepare for the next blow. But control is not safety. It's a cage built out of fear. A place where your intuition gets muffled, your joy gets rationed, and your self-worth hangs in someone else's hands. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean being cold or closed off. It means understanding that your peace isn't negotiable. It means realizing that someone else's chaos should not be the weather system inside your heart. But how do you let go when your identity has been woven into their approval? How do you move forward when your past still feels louder than your present? You don't detach by force. You detach by seeing clearly. Clarity is what frees you. Not anger, not distance, not even silence. You detach when you stop romanticizing the pattern, when you stop excusing their silence as maybe they're busy, when you stop calling inconsistency mystery and trauma passion. Clarity means you see the cycle for what it is. You admit that the highs are just distractions from the deep, aching lows. You admit that love isn't supposed to feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells or begging for crumbs. And once you see the truth, not through the lens of hope, but through the lens of self-respect, detachment becomes less about willpower and more about alignment. You no longer fit inside the story that once held you hostage. You detach when you realize it was never love. It was familiarity. You were trying to fix the past. That's why you stayed. That's why you kept justifying their absence. You thought if you could just love them harder, heal them deeper, or understand them better, maybe you'd finally be enough. But you were never the problem, and they were never your project. You were repeating an emotional loop built from childhood wounds that whispered, if I can just be perfect, maybe they won't leave. You detached the moment you realized you don't need to earn what's real. You detached the moment you saw that your love was pure, but it was being poured into a bottomless cup. Letting go is a return to self. You don't just walk away from them. You return to the parts of yourself you abandoned to be chosen. You reclaim the version of you that stopped laughing to keep the peace. You reconnect with the dreams you delayed, the creativity you buried, the voice you silenced. Because the truth is, you didn't lose them. You lost yourself trying to keep them. Detachment is the art of remembering who you were before their absence became your obsession. It's not about deleting the memories. It's about removing the meaning you assigned to them. It's not forgetting what happened. It's forgiving yourself for staying too long. And when you do that, when you truly come home to yourself, the attachment loses its grip. Because it wasn't them you were addicted to. It was the feeling of finally being seen. And once you start seeing yourself, really seeing yourself, and the hunger for external validation fades into something deeper, something peaceful, something real. Peace feels boring until chaos stops feeling like love. Sometimes you reject peace because it doesn't spike your adrenaline, because it doesn't make you feel needed or chased or on edge. But that nervous flutter, that emotional roller coaster, that's not passion. That's your nervous system being hijacked. And healing means rewiring that. Detachment is when calm stops feeling like emptiness and starts feeling like safety. When you no longer need chaos to feel alive. When presence becomes more attractive than intensity. When your boundaries become the love letter you write to yourself. But detachment isn't instant. It's a daily rebirth. There will be moments you miss them, not because they were good to you, but because you were good to them. You'll grieve not what happened, but what could have been, what you imagined, what you hoped they'd grow into. And that grief is sacred. But don't mistake it as a reason to go back. Feel it. Honor it. Then let it go. Because real detachment isn't bitterness. It's not pretending you don't care. It's knowing you deserve peace more than you deserve closure. It's understanding that healing doesn't always come with a goodbye. Sometimes it's just a silent, steady walk back to yourself. And with every step forward, something strange begins to happen. The memories don't hurt as much. The silence no longer screams. And one day, quietly, almost without noticing, you realize you no longer check your phone for their name. You no longer shrink in rooms that remind you of them. You no longer carry the weight of who you thought you had to be to keep them. You're just here. breathing easier, laughing louder, feeling again, but not for them, for you. And that's when you'll know. You didn't just detach, you healed. But there's one final realization that unlocks full freedom, and most people never reach it. It's the one belief you must destroy completely if you want to stay detached for life. Let's go deeper. There's a quiet belief hiding beneath your struggle to let go. A belief you picked up when you were too young to question it. A belief that once kept you safe, but now keeps you stuck. It sounds like this. If I let go, maybe I'll never feel love again. That's the final chain, the deepest hook. And unless you break it, you'll always return to what hurts you. Because even pain can feel better than emptiness when you've confused love with survival. The root of attachment is fear of emptiness. It's not them you can't let go of. It's who you were with them. The feeling of being wanted, the identity of being needed, the illusion that someone finally saw you and chose you. And when that's ripped away, you're not just grieving a person. You're grieving the version of yourself that only existed in their presence. That's why detachment feels so hard. It's not about moving on from them. It's about facing the fear that without them, you're no one. But that's the lie. That's the illusion. You were always someone. You just forgot who, because you were too busy performing the role they liked best. And now, the detachment becomes a return, not a rejection of love, but a rejection of false love. Love that needed you small. Love that needed you anxious. Love that needed you afraid of being alone. Real detachment is rebuilding your inner world. You don't move on by filling the space. You move on by transforming the space. Every moment you resist texting them, you plant a seed. Every day you choose peace over answers. You water your self-respect. Every time you sit with the ache, instead of running back to what broke you, you build emotional muscle. And eventually, your nervous system stops seeing silence as a threat. It starts seeing it as freedom. That's when you know you've detached. Not when you don't miss them, but when your missing no longer owns you. When you can miss the memory without chasing the reality. When your love still exists, but it no longer begs to be returned. You can still love them and let them go. One of the most powerful truths. You don't need hate to move on. You don't need closure to have peace. You don't need a villain to be free. You just need honesty. Radical, gentle honesty. Admit what you felt. Admit what you hoped. Admit what it became. Then choose yourself, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally realized love isn't meant to break you into pieces just so someone else feels whole. Detachment isn't the end of your capacity to feel. It's the beginning of your capacity to feel without losing yourself in the process. Detachment is love with boundaries. You can love them and still not answer the call. You can forgive them and still protect your energy. You can wish them healing and still never let them near your peace again. Because true detachment isn't cold. It's warm self-respect. It's the soft but firm voice inside you saying, I love you, but not at the expense of my soul. I care about you, but I won't betray myself to prove it. I still feel, but I won't chase pain and call it purpose. And when you live from that place, You don't need to cut people off with anger. You just stop bleeding for people who don't stop to notice you're hurting. The fastest way to detach is not a trick. It's not a tactic. It's not pretending to be unbothered while crying alone. It's a complete shift in what you believe about love, worth, and safety. It's when you stop asking, "Why didn't they love me?" and start asking, "Why did I believe I had to earn it?" That's when you let go for good, because it's no longer about who left. It's about who stayed and how you showed up for yourself in the silence. You realize the person who never abandoned you was you. And that's the love story that was waiting all along. The path forward. You'll feel stronger one day, not because the pain disappeared, but because it no longer defines you. You'll remember their name, and it won't sting. You'll visit the place you once sat with them, and your chest won't tighten. You'll hear the song you used to cry to, and you'll smile, not because it doesn't mean something, but because you now mean more. And when the next person arrives, as they will, you won't hand them your worth like it's theirs to measure. You'll know that love isn't about fixing, chasing, or losing yourself. It's about meeting someone at peace, because you are finally at peace too. That's what detachment teaches you. Not how to stop feeling, but how to start choosing yourself, no matter how deeply you feel. And now that you've walked through the fire, there's just one more question left to ask. When you look back, not at them, but at you, will you remember this as the moment you broke, or the moment you woke up? Because the truth is, the fastest way to detach is to fall in love with who you become when you finally do.